Good afternoon, parents. Good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching this. I'm Mr. Broome here, going over our back to school PowerPoint for fifth grade at Lyons Mill. Just sit back and relax. Feel free to email me with any questions that you might have, comments or concerns, so that we can make sure you and your child are on the path for success this year in fifth grade. All right, so if we look at our grading scale is the same as it's been for the past few years in elementary school, A, B, C, D, E. One of the differences this year, though, is the way we grade our major and minor assessments. So when you notice when I put grades in the grade book, if there's anything that's written in the major category, which is 30% of your child's grade, those will be your tests and quizzes, any projects that we're working on, anything that involves us summarizing a bunch of skills all at once, which is pretty much our test. Anything that's in the minor category, which is 70%, the majority of your child's grade is minor, and these are every single thing that we do in class that assess a skill. So all of our classworks are minor test grade, are minor scores. So the priority is obviously what we do in the classroom. It means a lot more. As kids start to continue to develop study habits, when they get into middle school, they'll notice that the major category will be bigger and it'll get greater. But right now, the focus is just on minor. Practice is our daily homework. Any pretest that we give, anything that we do to see if a child is ready for a next level with whatever we're learning. So practices are worth 0 points, but they're important to go into the grade book though, because it gives you an idea and you get to notice trends on how your child is doing in school. So for example, if your child is getting their homework done every day, hopefully we notice that they're starting to get A's in class and they're starting to pass their tests, because homework is a way of studying. If your child isn't doing their homework as much, then you're going to notice that maybe their test scores are going down some because they're not studying as much. So even though it's worth 0%, it's still a good indicator of how well your child is doing in school and what we can predict on how they're going to do in the future. So just keep that in mind. All right, so most of the presentation last night was spent towards looking at Schoology and really trying to give you guys an understanding of how much we're going to depend on Schoology this year. Just about everything that we need will be found on that website. If your child forgets something at school one day for their homework and they're not sure what to do, they can always go to Schoology to see what they missed or get an extra copy of it, or even just look at it on their computer screen and they can just copy their answers on paper or something. So it's going to be very hard for them to use that excuse that they forgot something at school, because technology provides us with everything that we need at all times. I also am on my phone often too, so if you send me a message, usually before 8 o'clock, I can try to get back to you. If you send me a message at 8 o'clock at night, after 8 o'clock, I try to just wait until the next morning so I can just wind down for the rest of the day. But definitely feel free to email me if you have any questions. And like I said, if it's about that night's homework or if it's something important, I'm going to try to respond right away. If not, I'll try to get back with you the next morning when I get in the building. But please, if you get a chance, or please just sign up for Schoology so you can see how your child is doing. You can check their grades and check on their progress throughout the school year. All right, so now we're looking at our daily schedule. The main things that I want to highlight here, one is special area, because we want to make sure the kids are prepared for whatever they need for that special area. So on Mondays, we have music with Miss Allman. On Tuesdays, we have Spanish with Senior Chupnik. On Wednesdays, we have library. So I want to make sure library books are in school on Wednesdays in case they need to turn them in to get new books. On Thursdays, we have phys ed with Mr. Crofamel. So we want to make sure we got shoes, the proper shoes on Thursdays, as well as any other day during the week for recess. We want to make sure we're wearing the proper shoes also. So always make sure your kid has the correct shoes so they can play and have a good time. And then on Friday, we have art with Miss Brucci. So we want to make sure for art that the kids have an old shirt or smock in their lockers so that they can use that in case they're painting or doing something that might get messy in art class. So try to have those things ready to go. Lunch and recess time is from 11:35 to 12:25. I know sometimes parents like to come in and bring lunch or sit with their child doing lunch. So you just want to make sure you highlight that time. We have a slightly earlier lunch, so you want to make sure you can accommodate that. In the afternoon, we do writing, and then we have our math and science leading up to dismissal. When I go through science and health later on, you'll notice that science, social studies, and health all taught at the same time, and they're taught in a rotation. So right now we're in our science unit. After that, we'll go to a social studies unit, and then we might repeat science and social studies again because we don't really do health until January. But you'll notice that we're never doing more than one of those at the same time. That's the main point I want to make. And then, of course, we help every kid is out and home safely as they leave the building by 3:30. All right, so we have some things in Lyons Mill that we do with all the kids in the school, and then we got some things that we do with just our fifth graders to improve the fifth grade experience. So some of these things are unique to our class only because these are things that I like to do, and some of these things are unique to our grade level. So the class government and genius hour, those are things that we do in our class. The class government is excellent because it does a good job with preparing kids to be future leaders. So if any of your children or your child in our class has that in them, they want to be a leader type thing, you really want to encourage them every quarter to run for a class government because we want to put them in a situation where they can be a leader but still have the teacher guiding them along the way so that they're not becoming too bossy or being too mean, but still looking out for the good of everybody. So we definitely want to be able to practice that so that when they get into middle school and they're put in those situations, hopefully it'll be a little more of a better transition for them. And in the springtime, we do a lot of different activities with the kids. The fifth grade basketball game is one of the fifth grade incentive day activities that we do. As we get ready for testing and the weather starts to warm up, the kids tend to get a little more talkative and busy, especially after a long winter of missing a bunch of school days. And so we want to make sure when they come back in March, April, and May that they're focused and ready for anything that might come their way. So we do incentives with the kids where every month there's a celebration based off of the number of tickets that they earn. So just look out for that in the springtime to help keep the kids motivated. We have 2 field trips coming up that we know for sure. Our Bio Blitz is going to be in May. I'll get to that later. And then we also going to do a math field trip as we go to a golf course on October 18th. We are still working on getting the paperwork done for that field trip. That one's coming up pretty fast. So we are going to need chaperones for these field trips. So if you've completed the volunteer training for this year, that's awesome. Because in order to do any of these field trips, you do have to complete the volunteer training. I sent you this whole slide as a PowerPoint, as an email 2 days ago. So definitely feel free to go back and click on this link to go to that website. I got the website showing right now on the screen. Or if you're not sure, just search BCPS volunteer info and it'll take you to this website. You would then go ahead and click on the link for the volunteer services and then go through that process. Everything is done online. And I believe once you submit it, the school will be emailed saying that you've been added to the list. Just in case they don't, hold on to those documents that they give you. That way we can verify that you were volunteer trained before you come in. Also with volunteer training, if you ever want to come into the classroom to help us out, help work with a group of kids on their multiplication facts or something, just do something in a fun way so they're not listening to me all day. Give them a little break. So if you got a day off, you want to stop in and help us out, feel free. But then of course just make sure that you let me know ahead of time so I can plan. I don't want you to come in one day and there's nothing for you to do. And then also make sure you complete the volunteer training. That's all. Okay, so now we're looking at reading. For our reading program, we use a series called Wonders. That's the name of the series through McGraw-Hill Reading. So a lot of our stories that we read in class will come from that book. Every now and then they might take that book home, but you won't see this book too often. This is something that'll stay in the classroom on the bookshelf, and we'll just grab it as we need it. There's other books that you might see taken home, whether it's the chapter books or something else that we're doing in class, a small paperback book that we might be using to help us out with the story. So it's rare, but you might see those come home. Most of that's done in class. We try to do read alouds at least 2 or 3 times a week. The importance of a read aloud is just to make sure kids hear how books should be read. And so I encourage you to do read alouds at home too. So when you get to a question, do you bring your voice up at the end to show that you're asking a question? When you get excited, do you raise your level of your voice so that the audience knows you're getting excited and looking at things like that. So I'll model that as much as I can, and hopefully the kids will pick up on it, just like they have the past couple of years. And again, if you try that at home as well, you might notice that helps with them becoming better readers and better comprehenders of what they're reading. All kids, most instruction is done on a guided reading level. This is a letter. We have kids in our class that are, the fifth graders are typically around a level T, and it's just in the alphabet. So letter T is closer to the end of the alphabet. We assess the kids at the beginning of the year, and we assess the kids at the end of the year. So I have that data from last school year, but I want to assess them again to see if they've gotten better over the summer, if they've lost a step over the summer, so that we can make sure we're reaching them on the independent level and on their instructional level. Two different levels that we want to do. They read on their independent level. I teach them on the instructional level so that they can improve. I will have that information for you when we do our first conferences, so you know where your child is, and we'll look at the site in a second on how you can help them out. All right, so we got 3 writing assignments. You got your personal narrative, your informative essay, and your persuasive essay. Those are the 3 main writing assignments that we'll do throughout the year. And so we're going to be working on just the mechanics of writing too. The size, the spacing, the capital letters. Are we using the correct nouns and verbs? Things like that. So we'll be going through all those mini lessons to help build up to these bigger writing projects at the end of the assignment. We do have a class library, so students can borrow books whenever they want to. We have a school library for students to borrow books. The bottom bullet is important, though, because if kids are really reading a book that they're interested in, and preferably a chapter book that they're interested in, they should be reading about 1 book every 2 to 3 weeks. Twice during the week, and we'll look at reading homework in a second, but twice during the week, they have reading as an assignment. That's 1 hour right there of nonstop reading that they're putting in 30 each night. And then any other time that you need them to read to help boost up their reading capabilities will always help. So the goal is, again, if they get a chapter book, they should not have that chapter book longer than a month. If so, they're not reading it, and it's time to just get a different book for them to read anyway. All right, so speaking of reading, as we go through this, if the kids, once they figure out what their reading level is, we can then go ahead and start to make sure we're getting books on that level. And so one of the places that you can go to check that out is Scholastic Book Wizard. If you click on this link to go to the site, it'll take you to the Scholastic teacher section of the scholastic.com. And then on that site, you can type in the name of a book. And when you type in the book, it'll tell you the level that student is on. It'll tell you, that's wrong. It'll tell you the level the book is on, so that you can make sure your child is reading the correct book. I'm going to try to go to that site real quick, so give me 1 second. Let's discard. We should be good. Okay. So I'm going to click on this link. Okay. So this will take us to the site, and then you can also download this as an app. And when we download this as an app, it will allow you to also scan the books in the stores to see what level your child is on. So that might be a little easier. So for example, if we look at this book, Wonder, which is here on the first page, Wonder is one of the books that we read together in class. And when you click on it, it'll tell you automatically that Wonder is a V level. So we want to make sure that when your child is reading a book, if it's a V level and your child is at a T, that means this book is more advanced for your child. So maybe this is the book where if your child still wants to read it, maybe you're going to check in on your child often to make sure that they're understanding what they read. And that's going to be very important. Sometimes parents have gotten books, bought 2 copies of a book so they can read it and the kid can read it at the same time, just to make sure everybody's understanding everything and that the kids are enjoying the book. So definitely check out Scholastic Book Wizard. Once I figure out what your child's levels are, and I'll try to write those in their planner so that you'll know, so that when they get books, they're not getting books that are going to frustrate them. That's the important part. Reading is supposed to be fun, not a pain. So we want to make sure we're meeting them where they are. All right, so daily instruction in ELA is very important, the way we split our kids up. So we have a mixed group in our classroom. So we have some kids who are really strong in reading, and we got some kids that are right where they need to be, and then we got some kids that need some help with their reading. So when we do instruction, the kids are split into smaller groups, and we rotate through those groups. Let me go to this next screen real quick. So here's an example of what a possible rotation might look like. Let's say if I'm working with the green group, then I'm expecting that the other groups are able to do what they need to do independently without talking to each other, without getting off task, but focusing on their work. So if I teach a lesson, and then after I teach the lesson, whole group, we go into rotations. So the first rotation, the green group is doing teacher time. So I'm working with them directly, where the next group, they need to practice reading to themselves. Quietly, focus. We have a reading area. We have beanbags they can sit on, but they need to be able to do that by themselves. If a group is doing, the next group is doing edutyping, they need to be able to focus on their devices by themselves, doing their own work. Same with Middlebury. Middlebury is our Spanish program. If they're doing that part of their rotation. So this is not a typical rotation because I won't do edutyping in Middlebury every single day. But read to self is going to be a popular one because we need to keep that going. And teacher time obviously is going to be a popular one because I need to make sure I'm differentiating my lessons for each group of kids. So as we go through these rotations, my concern is going to be limiting the talking, focusing on your work, holding yourself accountable for your work. For some kids, that won't start to be a reality until they start to see grades posted. And so it's a little rough right now, but we'll work our way through this to make sure these kids are being successful. Okay, so this is your homework for the week. This homework chart, as well as explanations for the homework, are glued into their word work notebook. So if you've seen their spelling homework so far this school year, you've seen this chart in their word work notebook. We also still write this in our planners, but this is another place where you can find it. So every Monday they do a writing sort for spelling, and there's a story they have to read for reading that comes with some multiple choice answers. So that's every Monday, and they get everything that they need for their homework. They get it on Monday. So on Monday, they're going to have a packet that's going to have their words for the week. It's going to have the comprehension worksheet, and it's also going to have the reading summary worksheet that's going to be due by Friday. So they get it all on Monday. Everything is due on Friday. All of the homeworks go in their word work notebook. We modeled this all last week. We did an entire week of word work homework in their notebook last week, so that when they started this week, they would have examples to help them out. So please make sure you check those examples if you're not sure what to do. The read for 30 minutes for Tuesday and Wednesday match up with Thursday's homework, where they have to do a summary of what they read for 30 minutes those 2 days. So one of the things that we're asking right now is when a kid is reading for 30 minutes that they're reading fiction books, because we've practiced in class how to summarize fiction stories. Next month, we'll practice summarizing nonfiction stories. So then they'll have the option of doing fiction or nonfiction. But right now we want to do fiction like we modeled yesterday at Back to School Night. We're using Somebody Wanted, but so then the summarizing technique. So look out for this homework. Again, today, if you're listening to this video today, Wednesday, that we have no school, your child would still have homework to do Wednesday, even though they weren't in school to get homework. So this is set for the whole week, no matter what. And then it's always going to be due on Friday. So if there's any reason your child can't get the homework, it's okay, because it's due on Friday. So if Monday's a crazy night, that's fine. They can do their Monday night homework on Tuesday to make up for it if something were to happen at home and you couldn't get to the homework. So you got a little flexibility there. Just make sure everything's ready to turn in on Fridays. If your child is absent for any reason, please make sure they come with a note for being absent. You can email me. You can write it in their planner. You can write it on a piece of paper. It doesn't make a difference as long as we have documentation as to why your child was out, so we can excuse that absence. We're supposed to allow kids to make up work no matter what, excused or unexcused. But if I know what the excuse is, then I can be more lenient on how much time I give them to make up their work. If there is no excuse and they just decided to stay home one day, then their work is going to be due the very next day. But if they were sick and I don't know that they're sick and they got to recover, I can make it 2 or 3 days depending on how much work they have to make up. So please make sure I'm always notified. If you know in advance, sometimes I can get lessons ready for you in advance. Sometimes I can't, but it is helpful to know. The other thing with homework real quick is, or missing work or absence real quick is, If a kid is absent, the very next day, their job is to choose a friend to come up to lunch with them, to help them catch them up on some work that they missed. And I'll be in the room with them, so I get to hear what they're talking about and fill in any gaps or misconceptions. But we do want them to start to depend on communicating with each other and working together to find some of the work that they made up. So just keep that in mind with makeup work. We try to get it all done in school, but sometimes they do have to take work home to finish it so that the grade doesn't suffer because of it. In math, we use performance levels to determine how kids are doing on their work in math. And so sometimes you'll hear kids go home talking about what their performance level is on a specific worksheet as opposed to what their grade is on a specific worksheet. These do match up. So a kid who typically gets a 90 to 100 in class, get an A in class, are typically on a level 4 performance level. That means they understand something so well that they can explain it to somebody else, and they can also apply it to other problems. And so this is where we're going to really need your help with homework. When your child, and I'll talk about math homework in a second, but with homework, we really want you to, if you can, to ask your child to teach you how to solve one of those problems. Pick one problem in the worksheet and give them a blank sheet of paper, have them pretend like they're the teacher, and listen to how well they explain their work. If they're explaining it really well, they're using vocabulary, then they're at a level 4. That means they've gone beyond mastery for that skill. They can do that skill in their sleep. Our goal is that the kids are on level 3. Level 3 means they know what's going on and they can do it. And they can get it right. This does mean that they're getting about 80 to 89s in class work. The average is about a B. That's where we want them to be. Of course, I'd love for them all to be A's, but if we're at a B, level 3, that's mastery. That means they know what they're doing, they know what's going on. If they're level 2 and below, scoring C's, D's, and E's, that's where we want to make sure we step up and make sure we got enough extra practice and we're talking to these kids to figure out why they're not getting something so we can help them out. Sometimes your child is not going to say anything in class. As much as I want them to, sometimes we'll do a skill and they'll get it when I'm working with them in a small group, but then they'll forget it the second I walk away from them because they might need me as a crutch to help them out. And so pay attention to those things at home. If they say they're struggling, try to figure out why they're struggling, because it could be because of not paying attention. It could be because of their confidence. It could be because the skill is just way too difficult. There's multiple reasons, and we want to make sure we find the right reason for your child. Just like in reading, the kids are split into different groups based off of their ability. At the beginning of every unit, we take a pretest. That pretest determines what level they should start on in math, and then our job is to advance them from there. So the important part is, while they're doing their work, they need to be focused and independent throughout that entire time. And so stamina and perseverance are going to be keys for this year with your child's success. This is a sample math lesson that the kids get every single day. I call it their game plan. And so this is posted on Schoology for them to look at every day. And so this is how we start our class off. We'll start off with the kids pulling up the screen to get this Schoology, and then they'll take their planners out so they can write their homework down. So the first place I always want them to look is at the very bottom. So this happened to be last Friday's lesson. And so last Friday, since it was a Friday, we didn't have homework for the weekend. So it was just have a great weekend. But typically down here, you would see what the homework is for that day. And then we go back to the top. And so I would ask the kids, what's today's lesson? And they know today's lesson was understand whole number and place value. This is Unit 1, Lesson 2. And we know that if we need any help and where we're going to work today in our workbooks, Pearson is the name of our workbook, we're going to be on Topic 1, Lesson 2. So they know we're doing 1-2 lesson in Pearson to show that we understand the skill. Then, of course, I ask them what the I can statement is so we can set our objective for today, our goal for today. We look at the essential question, and then we see if there's any vocabulary words. If there are vocabulary words, your child is expected to define those words in class. They're expected to use those words in class when we're talking about that skill. Last Friday, we talked about value and expanded form. So I challenge you right now to ask your child what those words mean. See if they've been using those words correctly. We do have them defined in our math binder, and then at the end of the unit, there will be a vocabulary quiz on those words. So we want to make sure they're doing pretty good with that. All right, so look at the rotations. So if you look at this, the kids are split into three groups, group A, B, and C. They all have the same first rotation. The same first rotation. We're doing whole group. So during whole group time, this is where obviously I introduce the skill to the whole class. We do a little bit of practice, but then after that, I need to then differentiate to give some kids more support, some kids less support, just to base on off what they need. So if you notice, after we all do whole group together, group A, it now goes to square number 2, so they're doing seat work. Group B is going to square number 4, so they're going to start to do their vocabulary. When they finish, they'll do their may-do packet. Group C is going to rotation number 3, so they're going to do dream box next. And so all three groups are doing something different. My job is to walk around. I'll spend most of my time with group 2, or the seat work, the group that's doing seat work, because I want to be there while they're doing independent work. I do want to talk about Practice Buddy real quick for a second. We don't always use Practice Buddy, but this is a good resource for us to use, because while they're doing independent work, Practice Buddy is a website on their devices that they can access at home through Pearson, where they can do sample problems just like we do in class. But because I'm not always available to that group, Practice Buddy will tell them if they're getting a problem right or wrong, and then it'll correct them if they're getting it wrong, so that they can adjust without me being there every second. So Practice Buddy is a great way for your child to get extra practice and confirm their learning, to make sure they're doing things correctly. Another thing that I want to highlight is in their binders, there's a notebook called Math Anchor Charts. Just about every lesson, we do some kind of a chart to show our learning. And so with the Math Anchor Charts, if your child is struggling at home, have them pull out their anchor chart book. And in their anchor chart book, or maybe in some notes in their binder, they're going to be examples of how to do the work. So very rarely should a child go home and say, I don't know what to do. They have resources to help them out so that they can experience success as much as possible. So if they forget their homework, if they don't know what to do, just have them pull up this game plan on their devices or at home on the website on Schoology, and then you can see what the homework is and you can help them out. So again, if I go back, reading homework is always in their word work notebook. Even though we write it in our planners too, it's always here so you can find it. Math homework, again, is always in their planners, but it's also on Schoology also, so you can find that and see what the homework is in case they did not write it down for any reason. Math homework is typically about 2 to 4 problems. It's really not a lot. We're looking more for quality, not quantity with math. And so hopefully that would also afford you the time to be able to sit down with them and talk to them about their math to make sure they understand what they're doing, because there's not that many problems that you should have to check as we go throughout this. If for any reason your child is struggling, they don't have any examples in their notebooks, maybe the paper fell out or something, whatever reason, at the top of the homework, whatever the homework is, so far the kids did page 49 set A and they did page 49 set B. Right above the assignment are the pages that we use in class that explain the assignment. So your child can check that out. I'm gonna try to get to that real quick, so I'm gonna pause this for a second and then we'll see. Okay, so I'm just gonna walk you through logging onto Pearson just so you can see how I'm getting there, and how your child can access some of these materials. So we're going to BCBS 1. The main place kids go every day is Schoology, and that'll be the first square on their tiles. But for this purpose, we'll go to digital content, where we get all of our databases, and then we're going to go down to Pearson, the P. And then we go to Pearson Realize. Go to Programs, click on, we use the Blue Whale, is the 5th grade math book. Every now and then some students might be using the 6th grade math book if they are really taking off for a specific skill. So we do have some extras in the classroom just in case, but the Blue math book is our go-to. And then here's another example. So if your child forgets their book at home, they can get to their book here on Pearson. We have the e-text. That'll take you right where you need to go. So I'm going to open up the student edition so we can take a look at what the homework looks like. Okay, so like I said, the homework was page 49. Okay, 49 then. All right, that's not working out. Let's go to topic 1. And now let's try 49. Okay, perfect. All right, so this was Monday's homework. Or, I'm sorry, this is our first math homework after we did our first lesson. So it's set A. On the left side, it's just a quick example of what we did in class. We talk about powers of 10. How do you write 7,000 using exponents? That's 3 zeros, so we know that's 10 times 10 times 10, or 10 to the third power. And so the kids take this information, and then they try it on these 4 problems on the right side. And so the right side is the work that they have to do. If for some reason your child does not understand what they're doing, then they can go to pages 5 to 10, which are the workbook pages earlier in the book that we used in class that day. Now, I don't do all the problems on pages 5 to 10. It's a lot of work on those pages, so we just do some of them. So the good thing is, everything else on pages 5 to 10, you can use to help your child get extra practice. So if you don't think these 4 problems are enough, and you want them to really show that they understand it, go back to pages 5 and 10 and have them help you out. So let's go to page 5 real quick, and let's just see what this looks like. So page 5 is where we started a lesson. It's called the solve and share. Nothing too much here for you to use because this is just to see what they know before the lesson starts. Page 6 is a whole teaching page. So it goes through how to break things down. It's pretty much an anchor chart to help you out on page 6 as to how the lesson goes. Page 7 starts off at the top with what we call guided practice. Guided practice is the part of the lesson that I do with them. I guide them through this to make sure they got it. So we go through this whole first box together. We answer those questions. And then when they go back to their seat, they do the independent practice together with their partners, or they do it by themselves to make sure they understand it. On the back of this page are word problems. This is going to be our focus this year, but we're going to take it slow. We're not going to jump into word problems right away. I'm going to make them more simple to begin with, and then we'll slowly add 2-step problems or problems that involve multiple operations. You got to divide first and then multiply second, things like that. And we'll try that as we go through. But the next 2 pages, remember it was pages 5 through 10. So pages 9 and 10, those last 2 pages, we don't use. So these are the old pages that we used to give for homework, but we've learned that it's been just too much homework. It's just too much for the kids to do. So the county asked for us to simplify what we give for math, which is why I just give those 4 problems. But this page is rarely used in class. So you can always tell your child to go and try page 9. Always have them try the word problems on page 10 if they want to make sure they really understand the skill that they're learning. So just remember, I access all of this online. Your child can do the exact same thing when they log on to BCPS 1 and go to their digital content to get to Pearson. So if they forget their book at school, they still have the option of getting everything done. Just go online and then copy their answers onto a sheet of paper, and then they can put them back in their book tomorrow when they get back into the classroom. So, all right, so keep that in mind. Again, if you have any questions about Pearson and the resources, just let me know, and we can do what we can to make sure everybody's on the same page. So just to go back to page 49, one more thing with this. I don't check this homework until every set is done for this specific chapter. We're on topic 1. So topic 1 has, this is A, B, and C on this page. You got set D, set E, set F, and then I know set F is the last one because the last one was always look for and use structure. And so once we finish set F, which will be sometime next week, then I'm going to check the homework all at once, because that means we finished that topic, and then we'll move on to topic 2, and we'll see the homework repeats itself again, except for now it's topic 2. So if your child, again, did not finish set A and B so far, because those are the only 2 assigned so far, you can still allow them time to finish that, because I won't check it until next week. Okay, all right. So that's math homework. Again, always listen to your child. Listen to how they explain their work. Look out for any vocabulary words that they're using. Give them as much praise as they can when they're using them correctly. Support them as much as you can when they're not using them correctly, so that they can keep experiencing success. When we look at math homework and reading homework and spelling homework as a whole, they should never spend more than 1 hour on that homework. Okay, so if we think about Mondays, I think are the busiest days for homework because Mondays they have to do a word sort for spelling. They have to read a one-page story and answer questions for reading, and they have to do their math homework. And when you go through all three of those things, we worked it out in class to figure out that it still shouldn't take more than 45 minutes to complete that. So when we say 1 hour, I want to make sure you know this. And I say this jokingly, but also serious at the same time. 1 hour does not count for the time they spend watching TV, walking to the kitchen to get something to drink or a snack, playing with their sisters and brothers, complaining because they don't want to do their homework, complaining because they don't understand their homework. That is not part of the 1 hour block. So when we say this, we're working for 1 hour, they really should be focusing, finding some place in the house where they can get their work done with as little distraction as possible, or sitting with you to get their work done to make sure that they're staying on task. So just keep that in mind. It should never go past 1 hour. And if it does, just stop them. Send me an email, let me know. They worked their butts off that night and they need to stop so they can enjoy life with their family for the rest of the afternoon. So just keep that in mind. We'll stay under 1 hour. We should be good to go. All right, so we got 4 health units. I'll let you just look through these just so you can get a better understanding. But we're going to do units 1 and unit 2 in January. And then we're going to do units 3 and 4 in May and June. So we do 2 before the end of the second quarter and 2 before the end of the fourth quarter. So you won't see a health grade in the first quarter and the third quarter on their report cards. So there's 2 things that we want to highlight. So when we get to the springtime for units 3 and units 4, I believe there's 2 lessons in unit 3, and then I think there's 3 lessons in unit 4 that I need your permission to teach to your child. The 2 in unit 3 involve HIV and AIDS. I have to talk about disease prevention and how diseases are spread. And then the 3 lessons in unit 4 are, we talk about adolescence and puberty and the changing body. And so there's some lessons where the boys and girls are in the same classroom and some lessons where we split them up to teach them about different things. And so there will be a night in the springtime where you will be invited to come in to take a look at these lessons. And then you can decide for yourself if this is something that you want us teaching your child, or if this is something that you want to teach your child yourself as they continue to grow and need this information. So look out for more information. Typically we do this during the 30 minutes before the spring concert. So in the springtime, there'll be a spot where all 5th graders participate in the spring concert because everybody is at least in chorus. So that's that we know most parents will be there that night. And so 30 minutes before the spring concert, you can come to our classrooms, look at all the lessons, look at the videos that we're going to show the kids, and then you can decide if this is the best time for your child to take on this information. All right, then with social studies, we have 3 units. So science and social studies typically alternate whenever we're doing the same one at the same time. So right now we're doing science. After we finish our science unit, we'll do social studies, and we'll just keep going back and forth throughout the year. So I'm thinking around the middle of October, we'll start social studies, and we'll be learning about colonial America. And so our main goal in social studies is we start with colonial America, and we go all the way up to the U.S. government. So we're going all the way up until the United States becomes a country, and we talk about how governments are formed, the parts of the government, which should lead to our field trip in the springtime. Last couple of years, we went to D.C. for that field trip. I'm not sure where we're going this year. It might be DC again. It might not. But just know that wherever we go, this is our big ticket field trip, meaning it's typically, last year's DC trip cost, I believe it was $42 a kid. And so this is one that you want to make sure you're accounting for when you do your budget so that we can make sure all these kids are able to go on the trip and have a good time. Like I said, we started science first, so we're in our blast-off unit. In our blast-off unit, we're creating bottle rockets, but our goal throughout the unit is going to be to find the best chemical combination to make bottle rockets blast off the highest. And so throughout the unit, the kids will be learning about different chemicals. We're going to be using household chemicals, but we're not going to call them by their household names. And so just be mindful of that. We're going to use the scientific names for these chemicals, and I think that'll make it more interesting for the kids to really figure out which one is the best one. So they might think, something smells like vinegar, but I would never call it vinegar. I can't remember the scientific name for vinegar right now, but That's what we're going to call it. And so just be mindful of things like that. If we're using something with sugar, we're going to use the word dextrose instead of sugar. And so the kids just get used to thinking about things a different way. So just be mindful. We have a science student on Benjamin Banneker, who helped map out and survey the land for Washington, D.C. He's a very famous Maryland African-American farmer who created the Farmer's Almanac for Maryland, the Maryland region, and also used the stars in the sky to determine our latitude and longitude. So those are things that we're going to be practicing in that. So that's a big math unit for science that we'll be using. Then we have a water unit, which will lead to our Makers Fair. And then we also have BioBlitz, which is our field trip unit that I mentioned earlier. That'll be on May 9th. So we'll need chaperones for that. Back to the top, though, we are collecting 20-ounce soda bottles. So if you have any 20-ounce soda bottles laying around, just rinse them out for us, please, and send them in with your child. Our goal is that we can at least get 12 in. So if you bring those in, if we get more, we have enough materials that each kid can make their own if we had enough bottles. But at minimum, they can work with partners to make their bottle rocket, and then we can go outside and test them to see how well they did. Should be a good fun unit to start the year off, more of a hands-on type unit. Where we'll be testing things, wearing goggles every day, seeing what cool things we can come up with. Yesterday, I was able to show you one of a binder where you've seen your child's binder so far this year. Hopefully, the binder is organized. Everything in that binder does have a place that it belongs in. So we want to make sure the kids are looking at that. We're going to take a look at this binder agreement in a second because we do want to make sure everything is organized. But just a reminder that the binder goes home. Sorry for that. The binder goes home every single day, and the math workbook goes home every single day because that's where all their work is. Those are the same two materials that we use all day long in class. All of their other notebooks that they have and folders are in their book bins in the classroom because we use those for different reasons. But in terms of what's going home every day, you should have the binder, you should have that math workbook. In that binder is their planner. We are asking parents that you please sign that planner every single evening to make sure that I know you were aware of your child's homework, that I know that you saw any notes that I might have put into your child's planner, we'll talk about magnet schools in a second, but hopefully you saw the label in their planner for the magnet school application on Monday because you can now go online to start filling out the magnet school information. That stuff was given to you in your child's planner. So if you're checking that planner, you're going to get that important information whenever it comes. So just be mindful of that. Planner also has what days we don't have school and things like that, so that can help you out as well. So again, with the binder agreement, at what you can't see on this screen, but at the top of the binder agreement is an inspection list. So every now and then I will pull a kid to the side and say, hey, let me see your binder. And then I'll go through their binder and I'll make sure everything is in the correct section. All their homework is in the front inside pocket. And then once I look at the rings, I should see the binder agreement. Behind the binder agreement should be the planner so that you have it there to sign every single night. Their homework's written in it. Then we have our tabs, our dividers, and they should be in this order. First is reading, then writing with their word work notebook in that section, then math with their anchor chart book in that section, then content. Content is science, social studies, and health. So right now their science workbook, their blast-off book is in their content section. And then their Genius Hour projects. We haven't put anything in there yet, but you'll find what they're working on for Genius Hour in that section of their binder. In the back is their behavior handbook. And then the last pocket in the back of their binder is for any pages that just fall out of the rings. The rings get ripped off and you can't put the paper back in, so they just put it in the back of their binder. I do recommend, if you can, to get some of those reinforcements for the papers, those stickers that you can put on them in case you know your child. You know your child way better than I ever will. So you know how organized your child is, and maybe they need those to help them keep their papers in order so that they're not all stuffed in the back folder of their binder. So that's just my helpful tip on that one. Monday folders also go home every Monday. This week we had a lot of club papers put into Monday folders. We also had the picture day forms. Next Thursday, I believe, the 27th of September is our picture day. This is the picture that goes in the yearbook. So we definitely make sure all kids are there so they don't have to, so that they can be in the yearbook, pretty much. But also if you want to buy some pictures in the fall time, of course we do class pictures in the springtime. But if you check their Monday folders, which went home, you should see the picture forms and, again, any club forms that the kids might be interested in for signing up. Feel free to follow our class on Twitter, mbroome, at mbroomelemes. I think I posted maybe just one tweet so far from our class, because this Twitter is actually going to be one of our class jobs. We have a class photographer, and whenever we're doing something cool, it's going to be their job to remind me that we need to put this on Twitter. We need to share this with the rest of the world. And so our advisors for our class government are working on class jobs right now. Next week, we'll start to get kids to sign up for those jobs, and so I expect to see more things posted on Twitter as the year progresses. Okay. All right, so again, I mentioned Magnet Schools earlier because I told you, like I said, on Monday, you would have saw a sticker that said Magnet School forms are now available online. So I know some parents already went on to start filling out that, seeing what the options were. Miss Dudley, our guidance counselor, also gave the kids a brochure with all the magnet schools and all the information that you need, so you can tell what programs each magnet school has. So for those not familiar, every kid has a home school that they're assigned to, whether it's Deer Park or Northwest or whatever school they're in their zone for. But in Baltimore County, they also offer the option of kids to start to choose schools or be a part of a school that focuses on something they might want to do when they grow up. So I know at Sudbrook, I think they have programs like Earth Space Science or dance or vocal music, or some schools have magnets where you can learn a different language, Spanish, Japanese. Some schools are more medical related, the health programs. So there's a bunch of different options for you to look through and really think about if this is something that your child is interested in, because it's designed to give them a head start on preparing for that as they get older. Some kids, they're just too young to even think about something like that right now, while others are driven and ready to go. So definitely check out this link to go to figure out what's going on with the magnet programs. And then if you have any questions, you can email me, but it might be easier if you email Miss Dudley. She's our guidance counselor who's in charge of 5th grade this year, and so she's going to be the one helping the kids and you through this process so that we can get into as many magnets as possible. One thing to note is magnet is a lottery system. So in the past, it was all about good grades, and you would have to go on an interview and things like that. Now it's simply you submit the form. It says here the application deadline is Friday, November 16th. So once you submit that form, your child is automatically in the lottery. And then in the springtime, they'll just start drawing names out of the lottery. You'll get an email home saying if your child got into a school or they did not get into a school, and also if they're going to be on the wait list for that school. So just be mindful of that. That should come in the spring, so that'll help you decide where your child's going to go to school next year. All right, I think that's it for now. This is my 3rd time trying this. I'm hoping that this will work. And if it does, I want to do this more often. And so I'm going to try to post this online, preferably on YouTube, if not somewhere else, so that you can access this. And I'm also going to try to put more videos online. I'll try to put a video that walks you through completing a homework assignment, that walks you through how your binder is set up, how to choose a good book to read, different things so that you can help your child as much as possible at home. So thank you for those that were able to come tonight. If you weren't able to come last night, hopefully this video helps you out. And look out for more information coming soon. Look out for the weekly newsletters to keep you filled in so that we can have a great, awesome, successful 5th grade year. Thank you very much.